Hello everyone, today in this video I am going to deal with the 6th chapter of Moments of class 9th. The title of the chapter is Weathering the Storm in Ersama, written by Mander. Here, weathering means come safely through. Ersama is the place, it's a coastal area in Orissa. It was hit by a cyclone causing severe damage of property and life, and it totally destroyed everything. People had to suffer a lot, and this chapter gives us an account that how the people of Ersama were able to come up, how they were able to overcome the suffering and the loss which they have to suffer due to this cyclone. Now let's move to this chapter. On 27 October 1999, 7 years after his mother's death, Prasant had gone to block headquarters of Ersama, a small town in coastal Orissa, some 18 kilometers from his village, to spend the day with a friend. So here we are introduced to the central character of this story, whose name is Prasant, and the date is 27th October 1999. So this boy Prasant, he has lost his mother 7 years before, and now today on 27th October 1999, he is visiting his friend. He has gone to his friend's house, whose house is located in Ersama, which is a small town in coastal area of Orissa, and Ersama is 18 kilometers away from Prasant's village. In the evening, a dark and menacing storm quickly gathered. Wind beat against the houses with a speed and fury that Prasant had never witnessed before. Heavy and incessant rain filled the darkness, and ancient trees were uprooted and crashed to the earth. So now here it is being said that in the evening of 27th October 1999, suddenly the cloud grew dark and it was menacing. Here the word menacing is being used. It means that it was a great threat. It poses a great threat and danger. And suddenly it started storming, and winds started blowing at a very high pace, at a very high speed, and it started raining. And here it is heavy and incessant. It means that it started raining continuously without a stop. So it was dark all around, there was a storm, there was heavy and continuous rainfall, and the storm was so violent that it uprooted the trees. Ancient trees, here it means the trees which were quite strong and had a very strong root and trunk, even those trees were uprooted. So here it shows that how violent the storm was. Screams rent the air as people and the houses were swiftly washed away. Angry water swirled into his friend's house neck deep. The building was of brick and mortar and was strong enough to survive the devastation of wind's velocity of 350 km per hour. But the cold terror of family grew when the crashing of trees that had got uprooted and fallen on their house, sometime in the middle of the night, damaging its roof and walls. So now it is being said that the wind was blowing at the speed of 350 km per hour, and it was raining heavily, and therefore there was a scene of flood. Water was all around, even water entered into the house where he was staying, and there was neck deep water in the house of Prasant's friend. And now it is being said that the house where he was keeping himself, that house was strong. It was Pakka house made up of brick and mortar, and therefore it was strong enough to behold, to tolerate the speed of wind, and therefore it was not damaged. But in night, what happened? There was a tree which was uprooted and it fell upon the house of Prasant's friend only. And it fell in the middle of night, and as a result, the house, the roof, as well as the walls of that house was broken. It was damaged. The crash destruction wrought by the cyclone and the surge of the ocean continued for next 36 hours. Although wind speed had reduced somewhat by next morning, to escape the waters rising in the house, Prasant and his friend's family had taken refuge on roof. So here it is being said that it ran continuously for around 36 hours, and cyclone, the storm, rain all continued for 36 hours, causing huge destruction. Here the word crazed had been used. It means out of control. The destruction which was caused by this cyclone was out of control. No one can control it, and it continued for 36 hours. And then it is being said that next morning, although the wind speed was reduced, the wind was blowing previously at the speed of 350 km per hour. Now the next day, by the next morning, the speed has somehow reduced, and there was water all around in the house. The house was flooded with water where Prasant and his friends was putting up, and therefore in order to escape from that rising water, the family of Prasant's friend has taken refuge on the roof. So they had taken shelter. The house was full of water, and therefore they had all gone on roof. Prasant will never forget the shock he experienced at his first glimpse of devastation wrought by the super cyclone in the grey light of the early morning. A raging, deadly brown sheet of water covered everything as far as the eye could see. Only fractured cement house still stood in few places. Bloated animals, carcasses, and human corpses floated in every direction. All round, even huge old trees had fallen. 2 coconut trees had fallen on the roof of their house. This was a blessing in disguise, because the tender coconut from the trees kept the trapped family from starving in several days that followed. So now here it is being said that Prasant, he has never experienced in his life such a cyclone before, and therefore it was totally shocking experience for him. It was his first experience in his life, and he was surprised to see that. And next morning, wherever he could see, in every direction, as far as he could see, he saw only there was brown sheet of water covered as far as his eye could see. All the house were devastated. None of the house was now standing. Only one or two or few houses which were made up of Pakka structure, which were made up of cement, only that few houses were still stood there, or otherwise all other house was washed away by that cyclone. And all around he could see in water there were bloated animals. It means the animals, the dead body, the carcasses of animal, the dead body of animals were floating, and even human bodies, dead bodies of human as well as animals were floating in water in every direction. So that the cyclone has harmed life as well as property. So in nutshell, it can be said that it has devastated, it has washed away everything whatever came in the way, whether it was ancient trees, whether it was strong trees, whether it was life, whether it was animal, human being, houses, everything was washed away. And now it is being said that all, even huge old trees, not the new one, not a thin or feeble trees, but the strongest trees, the tree with the fattest and the strongest trunk, even those trees had been fallen down. And now it is being said that the Prasant and his friend's family, who has taken shelter on roof, who were trapped on the roof of their house, now they had some blessing. They got some blessing from the god, and he says that two coconut trees fell upon the roof where they were trapped. And that coconut tree had some coconut on it, and the family as well as the child who were trapped upon that roof, they all fed upon. They all consumed the coconut which was there on the coconut tree, and that coconut from that coconut tree helped them to survive for a few days. For the next 2 days, Prasant sat huddled with his friend's family in the open on the rooftop. They froze in the cold and incessant rain, and the rain water washed away Prasant's tears. The only thought that flashed through his mind was whether his family had survived the fury of super cyclone. Was he to be devoured once again? So now here it is being said that he was there as the rain continued for 36 hours, as the cyclone continued for 36 hours, and therefore he could not escape from that house, from his friend's house, and he was sitting over there on the roof under open sky without any shelter, and therefore they were feeling cold because they were continuously sitting in the rain. It was raining incessantly, continuously it was raining, and it was cold, and therefore they were feeling frozen. They get a feeling of frozen. And here the word huddled is being given. Huddled, it means crowd together. So all the members of his friend's family were sitting together, crowded. And he was continuously weeping. Prasant was weeping continuously because he was not with his family members. He was worried, he was anxious about the members of his family. He was worried about them, and only thing which was going on his mind was that whether his family members, whether the members of his family was able to survive that fury of that cyclone or not. So he was thoughtful, he was worried, he was tensed that whether once again he will be able to meet his members of his family or not. 2 days later, which seemed to Prasant like 2 years, the rain ceased and rain water slowly began to recede. Prasant was determined to seek out his family without further delay, but the situation was still dangerous, and his friend's family pleaded with Prasant to stay back a little while longer, but Prasant knew he had to go. So now it is being said, after 2 years, he stayed there at his friend's house for 2 days, and that 2 days seems to him like 2 years. And he was not able to control himself, he was not able to hold himself any longer at his friend's house. Now he wanted to see his members of family because he was worried. He don't know whether they had survived or not. So he wanted to see them as soon as he could. So therefore, as soon as the rain stopped and as the rainwater started receding, as the level of rainwater receded, he left his friend's house. His friends as well as the members of his family pleaded, requested him not to leave, not to go, because it was danger all around. It was not safe to step out of the house at that moment, but he was reluctant. He wanted to see his members of family, and therefore he, without making any delay, he left his friend's house. Now let's see whether he was able to reach his house or not, and he was able to find his members of his family or not. He equipped himself with a long sturdy stick and then started on his 18-kilometer expedition back to his village through the swollen flood water. It was a journey he could never forget. He constantly had to use his stick to locate the road, to determine where the water was most shallow. At places it was waist deep and the progress was slow. At several points he lost the road and had to swim. After some distance he relieved to find two friends of his uncle who were also returning to their village. They decided to move ahead together. So now Prasant was totally determined that he will not stay there any longer, and he will go to look out that whether his family members are surviving or not, whether they were able to survive that cyclone or not. So what he did, he equipped himself. He took one sturdy it means a strong stick. Here you can see in this picture he had one stick in his hand, and now he started his journey, which was of 18 kilometers. So now there was water all around. He was not able to locate the road. So sometimes even he lost the road. Sometimes it was most shallow point. It means sometimes it was deeper areas. Somewhere the water was so deep, somewhere it was up to waist, and slowly and gradually locating himself with the help of that stick which he had in his hand, he slowly and gradually continued his journey, and it is being said that it was the journey which he will never forget in his life. So, although it was difficult, it was challenging, but he continued. He was resolute, determined to see his family members, and therefore he started his journey, which was slow, but he was determined to reach his village. So it is being said that while he was on his way to his village, he saw two men of his village, and when he saw them, he was relieved, he was comforted that someone known to him, some of his villagers were still alive. So now that two men whom he met while he was on his journey to his village and Prasant, now three of them decided to head their journey together. As they waded through the water, the scene they witnessed grew more and more macabre. They had to push away many human bodies, men, women, children, and carcasses of dogs, goats, and cattle that the current swept against them as they moved ahead. In every village that they passed, they could barely see a house standing. Prasant now wept out loud and long. He was sure that his family could not have survived this catastrophe. So now it is being said that while he was on his way back to his home, he saw number of dead bodies of human beings, of men, women, children, cattle, dogs, goats were floating. The dead bodies of men and cattle, and human beings and cattle were floating over the water. And that scene gave a strong belief to his mind that all those things, when he saw that floating dead bodies, he was very much worried to see all those things, and it came to his mind that perhaps even his family members would not have been able to survive this cyclone. And while on his way to his village, whichever village he was passing, he saw that hardly there were one or two houses standing still, otherwise all others' houses were washed away. So he could not see any sign of life while he was on his way back to his village. And here the word waded is given in the first line. Here waded, it means walking with effort through water. And catastrophe is destruction, the disaster. So he thought that perhaps even his family would not have been able to survive, would not have been able to fight against that disaster which has come in the form of cyclone. Eventually Prasant reached his village, Kalikuda. His heart went cold. Where their home once stood, there were only remnants of its roof. Some of their belongings were caught, mangled, and twisted in the branches of trees just visible above the dark water. Young Prasant decided to go to Red Cross shelter to look for his family. So now finally, Prasant wading through the water with the help of stick in his hand, finally he reached his village. The name of his village is being given over here, that is Kalikuda. So as soon as he reached his village, he was shocked. He was terrified. Why he was terrified? Why he was afraid? Because the place where his house stood once, at that place there was no sign of life. There were no house. It was washed away. Only he could see that some of the remaining part of the roof of his house was lying over there, and that was twisted and mangled into the branches of the tree. So it came to his mind that perhaps he has lost all the members of his family, no one is alive. So from there he thought that he should go and look for his family members in the Red Cross shelter. Among the first people he saw in the crowd was his maternal grandmother. Weak with hunger, he rushed to him. She rushed to him, her hands outstretched, her eyes brimming. It was a miracle they had long given him for dead. So now finally, when he went to Red Cross shelter, there first of all he saw his maternal grandmother, and as soon as she saw her, she rushed to him, she hugged him, and her eyes were brimming with tears, as even they would have might thought that he would have lost his life, he would have been dead. But when she saw him, she was overcome with happiness, and therefore she hugged him. And she said that it was a sort of miracle because they had thought that even he would have died in that cyclone. And it is being said that she was weak with hunger because it had already been 3 days. 3 days had passed and everything was destroyed and devastated. There was nothing left, and therefore definitely they were starving. They were not having anything to eat. Quickly word spread and his extended family gathered around him and hugged him tight in relief. Prasant anxiously scanned the mortally battered group. His brother and sisters, his uncles and aunts, they all seemed to be there. So as soon as the news is spread that Prasant is back, his all other family members gathered around him and they all gave him a hug, as they had thought that he would have died. They all were worried about him, and that gave a sense of his presence, gave a sense of relief to his family members, as well as when he saw his family members, even he was relieved to see them. So now when all the members were there, he scanned, it means he had a look of their face, and the people, he was able to read their face, their suffering. He scanned the face of each and every members of his family, his brother and sister, uncle and aunt, and all were present over there. So mortally here it means incongruously varied in appearance, and battered it means injured by repeated blow. So all the members of his family, it seems that they had lost a lot in that cyclone, and that can't be corrected again. And it seemed that they had suffered a lot. They were sad, they were gloomy, and now let's see how they will be able to overcome the loss which they have suffered. By the next morning, as he took in the desperate situation in the shelter, he decided to get a grief over himself. He sensed a deathly grief settling upon 2,500 strong crowd in the shelter. 86 lives were lost in the village. All the 96 houses had been washed away. It was their fourth day at shelter. So far, they had survived on green coconuts, but there were too few to go round such a tumult of people. So here the word tumult refers to a loud, confused noise. So as 2,500 people were there, they had gathered over there at the same spot, and therefore the noise which were coming out of those crowd is being referred as tumult. So now here it is being said in this paragraph that next morning Prasant, first of all, what he did, he controlled his emotion, he soothed himself, he comforted himself, because if he would be emotional, then it may be that he will not be able to comfort other people. So before comforting others, he first of all comforted himself, and then it is being said that all the houses of that village, there were 96 houses in that village, and all the houses were washed away, and 86 people were dead. 86 people died in that cyclone, and it is being said that there in that relief center 2,500 people were gathering. 2,500 people had gathered over there. So now they were there in that shelter for 4 days, and they had nothing to eat except the green. So all the people were surviving upon the green coconut, and even that was not much in number left now. Prasant, all of 19 years, decided to step in as leader of his village if no one else did. He organized a group of youths and elders to jointly pressurize the merchant once again to part with his rice. This time the delegation succeeded and returned triumphantly, wading through the receding waters with food for entire shelters. So now Prasant, the boy, he is just of 19 years, and now he had thought that he will have to comfort himself, he will have to control his emotion. So once he has comforted himself, he thought that now he should lead. His villagers need his help, and therefore he thought that he should now lead in this difficult situation. And therefore what he did, he organized the youth of his village as well as the elder people of that village, and then with them he went to the merchant house to pressurize him, to ask him for eatables, for rice. So the merchant gave them eatables, he gave them rice, and now finally they will get something to eat. No one cared that the rice was already rotting. Branches from fallen trees were gathered to light a reluctant and slow fire on which to cook the rice. For the first time in 4 days, the survivors at the cyclone shelter were able to feel their bellies. His next task was to organize a team of youth volunteers to clean the shelter of filth, urine, vomit, and floating carcass, and to tend the wounds and fractures of many who had been injured. So now they had got rice. After that, what they did, they collected branches of the trees which were fallen in order to cook that rice for fire. And it is being said that in that 4 days For the first time, the people who were there in that shelter house, for the first time they were able to fill their bellies, that is, they ate for the first time in that 4 days. And now the food was provided. Now the next thing upon which that was sanitation. So he organized a group of youth, and they were given a task to clean the urine, the vomits, the floating carcasses which were there in the area where shelter house was located. And after that, the people who were injured in the cyclone, they were being tended. Their care was being taken. On fifth day, a military helicopter flew over the shelter and provided some food parcel. It then did not return. So here it is being said that on fifth day, the rescue team came over their shelter and they provided them, they dropped some food parcel, and after that it is being said that they did not return that day. The youth task force gathered empty utensils from the shelter, then they deputed the children to lie in the sand left by waters around the shelter with these utensils on their stomachs to communicate to the passing helicopters that they were hungry. The message got through, and after that the helicopter made regular round of shelters airdropping food and other basic needs. So now it is being said that Prasant as well as the members of his volunteer team, they used their presence of mind, and what they did, they collected the utensils from the shelter house and they gave a task to the small children. They asked them to lie on the sand with that utensils on their stomach. So it is a sort of signal to the military personnel or the rescue team, the relief providing team, that it will indicate to them that some of the people are still alive over there and they are hungry. So the message was finally passed, it was conveyed to the military personnel, and now the helicopter, the rescue team, the relief providing team came there regularly, dropping food and other basic needs near their shelter. Prasant found that a large number of children had been orphaned. He brought them together and put up a polythene sheet shelter for them. Women were mobilized to look after them, while the men secured food and materials for the shelter. So now it is being said that Prasant found that number of children had been orphaned as there was loss of life also in that cyclone. Number of people have died, and therefore number of children has become orphan. So what he did, he brought a polythene sheet and made a shelter for them, and he asked the women to look after those children, and the men, the male members of that shelter, they were managing, they were securing the food and other materials for the shelter. As weeks passed, Prasant was quick to recognize that women and children were sinking deeper and deeper in the grief. He persuaded the women to start working in the Food for Work program started by an NGO, and for children he organized sports events. So here it is being said that Prasant observed that the people were grief stricken, they were lost in their thought, in their grief, in their sorrow, and they were not able to overcome from it. And therefore what he did, he persuaded women, he asked the women to start working for an NGO who has recently launched a program, that is Food for Work program. So he set them to work for that NGO, not for food, just to heal their grief and pain. He thought that if they will sit idle, then definitely they will be lost in their grief and sorrow, and they will never be able to overcome from the loss. And therefore he asked them to start working for it, as they will be busy, and slowly and gradually they will be able to overcome from their loss. And for children he organized a sports event. He himself loved to play cricket, so he organized cricket matches for children. Prasad engaged with other volunteers in helping the widows and children to pick up the broken pieces of their life. The initial government plan was to set up institutions for orphans and widows. The step was successfully resisted as it was felt that in such institutions children would grow without love and widow would suffer from stigma and loneliness. Prasant's group believed orphans should be resettled in their own community itself, possibly in new foster families made up of childless widows and children without adult care. So now it is being said that Prasant, as well as the other volunteer of his group, they were helping the widows, the children, as well as other person who has lost their near and dear one, their family members, to overcome from their sorrow and their grief. And it is being said over here that the government launched a program to set up an institution for orphan as well as for widow. Of that village, they were wise enough and they resisted against it. They raised voice against it and they thought that it will not be suitable to allow those children and widows to live their life in that institution. They thought that if the child and the widow will live in such institution, they will be deprived of love, they will not get love and affection, they will be left all alone and they will feel shame and they will feel lonely and they will never be able to overcome from the loneliness which they will suffer in that institution. Therefore, what they thought to adjust, they thought to resettle the children who has been orphaned in their own community only, in the family who has lost their children, or the family who has become widow, who don't have any children. So they thought that those children as well as those widows should be resettled once again in their own community. It is 6 months after the devastation of super cyclone. This time Prasant's wounded spirit has healed simply because he had no time to bother about his own pain. His handsome youthful face is what the widows and orphan children of his village seek out in their darkest hour of grief. So now it is being said that 6 months has passed and the Prasant is still busy to help the widow as well as the orphan child to overcome from their sorrow, from their pain. And still the widows as well as the orphan children, whenever they face any difficulties, any problem, when they are in need, they look for Prasant only. So throughout this 6 months, he never had time to think about his own pain because he was lost in helping. He was lost in providing helping hand to the people who were grieved, who were in pain, who were in sorrow. So this is how the people of Ersama was able to weather out from the difficulties and challenges which they faced due to cyclone. Thank you.